Sunday, and we're back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. And it's been a long time coming. We've been gone for a little while, and certainly apologize for that. It couldn't be helped, but we're glad to be back tonight with tonight's topic, an unfinished life continued series, and tonight's topic is empathy. So it's going to be a really, really good one. This one written as usual by Glenn. He's done a fantastic job and a very poignant write-up, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So I welcome everyone to the broadcast, and I hope everyone's had a good couple of weeks, and hope that your weekend has gone well so far. And we're just happy to be here. We're happy that everything's still working, and we're able to get in here. I say that because they're continuing to make changes to all the stuff that we use, the OBS, and they changed. We used to use Google Hangouts to get in, and then they changed it to Google Meet, and then they changed a couple times since it was that. So we got it dialed in though, and we'll start the broadcast in just a minute. So first, I will say hello to the rest of the panel, starting with my songbird wife. It's a beautiful, beautiful voice. Jen, say hello to the peoples.
Hello, peoples. Good to be here, guys. We've missed you, and we're grateful to be back.
Yeah, we're grateful to be back. Yeah, it's tough when you're away for a while. It just feels weird. It doesn't feel, I don't know, it feels weird to me, I guess. Sometimes I want a break. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have to do it tonight. But then, another week goes by, and I'm like, I kind of miss it. So hopefully you guys missed it too. So we're glad you're here, Jen.
I am glad to be here.
And also our illustrious producer, and I'll make this very clear, our Aussie friend, not Aussie, and that one goes out to my friend Nathan from New Zealand. He was sent me an email about that he gets a laugh out of people in America using the term Aussie instead of Aussie, and it's an incorrect term. Glenn, how are you, my friend?
Not too bad. Young Nathan's right.
Yeah.
Those Kiwis, you can always rely on them to give you coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, he listens to the broadcast. He can't always listen live, but I know he does a lot of walking, so he apparently kind of takes it with him on his walk and listens to it.
He sure does, like 5 hours a day. He's a good guy, Nathan. I like him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We did a broadcast one time based on an email that he sent. I don't recall the name of the actual broadcast, but we based it around an email that he sent that I thought was very good. And he's a prolific emailer, and I every once in a while I'll sit down and take some time to respond to several emails that he sent that I didn't respond to. Anyway, I probably will never get caught up on the emails from him, but I'm grateful to have them. Grateful that he cares enough to talk to somebody, and to reach out. And sometimes it's scientific stuff. He has a fantastic mind. And so he'll just send me these ideas of his and talking about science and experiments and things like that. And other times it's biblical stuff. And he, in my opinion, he's in a good place with that stuff too, coming out of a lot of, like most of us, coming out of a church where there was a lot of deception and some things that messed him up. And coming out of that and realizing that for himself, that didn't work anymore. Anyway, Nathan, if you're listening, we appreciate you, and keep up the emails. Okay, so since we haven't been here in a while, I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't get the notification yet, or maybe you guys thought that we weren't coming back, and I would understand that, but we didn't intend on staying away forever. So But if we only have 3 listeners tonight, then we'll do the best we can to have a conversation with you guys. But I'm sure more people will come in. So, Jen, your job is going to be a short one tonight. But if you don't mind, let's say hello to the couple people that it's like like 2 other people that are in here. But we're glad you guys are here.
We are so glad you guys are here. So I'm going to say hello to Miss Debbie S. Hey, glad you're here, girl. And Stephanie Trexler. And I hope she's feeling better. She hasn't been feeling very good, and her kids too. So just checking up on you, Stephanie. We've been praying for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, Stephanie, we've been praying for you. It sucks to be sick. It just really, really does. And then to be sick and then have it come back on you again, from what I understand, that's what's happened to you and your kids and things like that. So that's not a fun place to be in. Nobody likes being sick, but especially when it drags on and on. So we'll continue to think about you and pray about you until you give us the 100%. So I'm glad she says she's better, not 100%, but better. That's good. That's good. Hopefully on the mend. So there you go. Okay. And Debbie, as usual, she usually comes in at the beginning and says hello and comes in at the end. She's listening. So hope you are doing well and everything's going the way that you hope it does on your end. And glad to see you here. Okay. I also want to remind people that we are still doing the Tuesday night. There's been a change. We're not any longer using the Google Meet. By popular demand and agreement, we decided to set up a Discord page. Is that what it's called? Server. Yes. Sorry. Discord server, I guess, is the term they use for it. So we do have one now, Discord server. And so you guys can pop in there anytime. And I like it because, if only 2 people are in there, they can text to each other or they can come on and have conversations. So we're still doing Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please feel free to drop in there. You don't need an invitation, but if you don't have the link or can't find us, just shoot me an email, and I'll try to go there tonight before we end and pop that in the chat. Before we get done, if someone would remind me, I'm sure I'll remember, but just in case I don't, if you could do that for me. All right, we had a couple people pop in, so if you would do the honors, Jen. A couple people just popped in.
Yes. All righty. Let's see. We've got Celine is here. Hey, Celine.
Hello, Celine.
Her and I have been chatting for a little bit in Messenger.
Oh, good.
And Gia, and also believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, putting it right in the handle there. I like that. Yeah, I'm not sure who that is, but
and we would love to know your name if you don't mind sharing it with us. But if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, well,
some people like to go by their handles, and that's totally fine.
That's totally fine. I think when I first started doing these chat situations and broadcasts and stuff, sometimes I didn't know someone's real name for quite some time. It was like called by their handle. Then someone would say, "Oh, that's
and then Bob." If you ask a question and you're like, "she" or "he," and it's like you got it wrong. It's like, "Oh no, sorry about that."
Yeah, we're glad you guys are here. So thank you so much for being a part of tonight's broadcast, and for those of you that popped in after we'd already started. We're glad to be back, and sorry that we missed you guys. We really did miss you guys for a while, and we just had to continue. And we're picking up where we left off with this series entitled "An Unfinished Life." Obviously, we have some reasons to be doing a series like this, and tonight we're going to be focusing on empathy. And I'll just get started. Before I do, though, I'll say hello to Liam. It's good to see you, Liam. Glad that you were able to come by. So hope you guys enjoy. Starts with a quote: "When someone shares their distress or their inadequacies, the natural inclination is to comfort them, to mollify. When we do this, we brush over their emotions, often because they make us uncomfortable. Most times, people don't want a blanket. They want someone who's willing to stand outside and shiver with them in the cold."
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. That one's by Jacqueline Simon Gunn. Why then an unfinished life? Well, it's one thing that we can say each person who is alive has in common. We're all going to expire. And there's a link in the description, An Unfinished Life. You can go click on that if you get a chance. Unfortunately, never a truer word was said. Very recently, a celebration of life was held for our dear friend Jena. The irony being that this series of shows was being written with her in mind, but she only made it to halfway with us. I'm certain Jena is here in spirit, though. Empathy, the link is in the description. It's described as a beautiful piano theme, dances over subtle synth pads, lush strings layer in, romantic and beautiful cello solo sets a somber tone. But the orchestra swells and builds with brass and rolling percussion. Choir lifts up, shining light in the darkness. Audiomachine album Belle Epoque. I've talked about this group, and it's mostly instrumental from what I have heard. Just wonderful, wonderful music. Glenn uses them a lot, and I understand why. So if you get a chance to go listen to them, the link is there for you. Tonight, part 4 essentially looks at empathy and asks, is compassion and affinity with people only half the picture? How often is it that we identify what we see in humanity, but decline to show ourselves the same grace that we show others? Wow. Another quote, never underestimate the pain of a person because, in all honesty, everyone is struggling. Some people are just better at hiding it than others. And that was by Will Smith. You see, our friend Jena was struggling. She admitted to much of her pain. Some she was good at hiding and keeping as her secret. Regardless of what level we connect with another person, how can anyone ever really know what lies within the mind of another? Even if we did, would it help, do you think? So where does empathy fit this picture? What lessons can we take from Jena's life and apply those lessons going forward? Another quote, empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. Mm-hmm. It's by Mohsin Hamid. I would say some of the lessons are the empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others. Don't be proud to reach out and ask for help when the train is running away. And that's a big one. We're going to spend some time on that one when we get to it. Treat each living moment as a privilege. When people speak, actually listen to what they have to say and what they don't say. Perhaps you have more lessons to add. I don't think Jena would mind me sharing that since February, we had been working on the construct of how can you be in a relationship with anybody else when you don't have one with yourself? I will say that again. It's a quote. How can you be in a relationship with anybody else when you don't have one with yourself? It is the repetitive theme. I am not worthy of being loved. I am fearful of being alone. I am stuck and cannot do anything about my situation that we see repeated day after day. None of this is an easy listen. However, it is a necessary listen in a world of empathy and compassion. Sometimes we might make a difference. Sometimes we might not be sure. Surely the point is to make the effort. I'm going to read that part again. Sometimes we might not, but surely the point is to make the effort. That makes more sense. The quotes say it much better than I can. Quote, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness, well, can we present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. That one's by Pema Chadran. Hope I said that correctly. Another quote, I believe in empathy. I believe in the kind of empathy that is created through imagination and through intimate personal relationships. I am a writer and a teacher. So much of my time is spent interpreting stories and connecting to other individuals. It is the urge to know more about ourselves and others that creates empathy. Through imagination and our desire for rapport, we transcend our limitations, freshen our eyes, and are able to look at ourselves and the world through a new and alternative lens, as our nafasi. Jena's celebration of life extract follows. And this is a quote. She looked back and marveled how far she had come. She didn't wonder how she made it. She already knew the answer. Only with God's help had she powered through. For without his strength, she can do nothing. End quote. What more can you give someone than unconditional love? For Jena, David, and Jena's family. Wow. Okay.
Beautifully written.
Beautifully written, very poignant, as I said at the top of the show, and a lot of implications in this, and a lot of ground to cover here. And we'll just dive in. Before we do really dive in, I just want to say that I have been continually moved by the loss of someone I wish I had known more. I know that Glenn got a chance to speak to her on many occasions, and he knew her more than I did, but I had a connection to her, as I've mentioned before, because she went over to Lon's channel, Fisherman in the Box, and I would see her over there, and we just kind of met each other in that way. And then Lon had talked about our channel here, and she came over and gave us a shot, and through that, I believe that she made some friendships, and one of those friendships was with Glenn. And I believe there was a lot of healing in that. And from what I've learned so far, many times there can be healing, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it's enough. And we will miss her. And this broadcast is in memory of her life. And also, frankly, it's a cautionary tale, because we're going to say some things tonight that we hope, even if one person listens to some of the things that we're going to discuss tonight, and it reaches anyone, then we'll have considered the job to be well done, because it is a job, I believe. We have an opportunity. It's a small channel that we have here, but I think it's very important what we're doing here. You know, we have to be careful of what we say, and there are people that listen. And like I said, if one person actually listens and it makes them change how they're handling their situation, then that's a success. And so I think I speak for all three of us when I say we hope that it does that tonight with the ground that we're going to cover. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go down to, I'm going to read the first quote again, because I like this one. When someone shares their distress or their inadequacies, the natural inclination is to comfort them, to mollify. When we do this, we brush over their emotions, often because they make us uncomfortable. Most times people don't want a blanket. They want someone who's willing to stand outside and shiver with them in the cold. Now, I would love to talk about this for a minute, because this quote by Jacqueline Simon Gunn, there's a lot being said here. And there's even a part of this that makes me think of a biblical passage, which is, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's basically saying, when you see someone struggling, you say, "Oh, we wish you the best," and you pray for them and do nothing more. You're not doing enough. You know, when you see someone cold and hungry, and instead of giving them a blanket, you just say, "I'll pray for you, brother. I'll pray for you, sister," and you do nothing. You're not getting it. And this is what this is saying, that from the perspective of, they want someone who's willing to stand outside and shiver with them in the cold, which to me says when someone is grieving, they don't need platitudes. They don't need someone to just say, "Oh, you know, God needs another angel," or well, you know, they're in a better place. Well, they may be in a better place, but that doesn't wash away the loss that someone feels when they lose a person that they care about. It doesn't take away the pain that someone feels when someone that they care about is gone. So this means something to me. They want someone who's willing to stand outside and shiver with them in the cold, and I think that speaks for itself. Before we move on, do either of you want to comment on anything you want to say about this quote?
Yeah, you know what it made me think of? My mom, maybe like a year ago, she took a class at church and it was about grief. And it wasn't like grief counseling, but it was just something to
About
do about,
grief.
yeah, about grief.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I remember she told me she learned some amazing things through this class. And I don't think it was a Bible study per se, but more of a class. And she said, she just mentioned that one of the things that we tend to do as people, and you guys, I'll just play out this scenario, and I'm
Mhm.
sure we've all been on either side of this, but
Sure.
if someone's dad passes away, I think sometimes our inclination is to share when we've been through something similar or the same,
Mhm.
and a person will respond with, oh man, I was 4 when my dad died, and, so on and so forth. It's just not helpful. And I was really surprised by that because I think I tend to do that. I was like, oh no, that's not good. And I remember my mom explained why. Um, it kind of like takes the focus off of the person's pain and it takes the spotlight, which it just isn't helpful. It's not comforting. And I'm trying to think of how I would feel if I had gone through that and somebody said that to me. I don't think I'd get upset, but I've just never been in that actual situation.
Yeah.
But I've heard people say that it's really, even if you don't know what to say, because sometimes we do kick into those comforting platitudes
Yeah.
because we are uncomfortable. I mean, this
Yeah.
this quote hits it on the head.
Yep.
Um, but even just sit with them
Yeah.
and even say, I don't know what to say,
Yeah.
but I'm here. If you want to talk, just I'm a listening ear. I'm here if you need to
Yeah.
just talk about how you're feeling. So I
Yeah.
don't know. My
So,
mom told me about that class and I was like, I think I need to take this.
yeah. Yeah. And so you nailed it, Jen. So thank you for that comment. Sometimes people just want you to just be with them, spend time with them. There are certain cultures where when someone dies, nothing is said necessarily. They just have someone that's with that person. And there are ways that people minister to those that are grieving. There's here in America, at least, there are many areas where I know when my mom died, I never had people bring so much food. I mean, I jumped in. That was when I first jumped into taking care of grandma. And I can't cook. I've got a couple meals that I can cook, but I was going to have a lot of learning to do in and taking over for my mother. But for the first, I'm serious, for the first month, it might have been even longer than that. It seemed like definitely for the first 2 weeks, there was a meal brought every night, a fresh meal every single night. And that was our family friend, Lana, the church that she went to, spearheaded that. And I was so touched by that. I didn't have to think about it. And it was sometimes people made fresh, from scratch food. Sometimes they bought like one time they brought Kentucky Fried Chicken, not the best for you, but I certainly was grateful for it. One person made chili in a crock pot and then brought like 6 mason jars. I don't think it was Mason though. I think it was another brand. Kier, it might have been. These 20 ounce, I think it was 20-ounce jars with chili in it. And let me keep the jars, because I had expressed interest in that. But anyway, it's not about that. My point is, there are things that you can do to let someone know that you're with them. It doesn't have to be platitudes. It doesn't have to be saying the right thing, because guess what? There's not the right thing to say. There's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing you can say that's going to wipe away someone's pain. There just isn't.
Yeah.
So be there for the person. Like this quote says, stand outside and shiver with them in the cold. That's beautiful. Just let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
You can't brush away their emotions. I agree with this quote that when we do this, we brush over their emotions. We don't have to do that.
No.
You can be there. You can show empathy towards a person by sometimes when you can ask a person, well, what can I do? What do you need? Sometimes the person doesn't know what they need. They really don't. especially in the midst of grief. They don't know what they need.
Yeah.
And it is uncomfortable, like you said, Jen. It is uncomfortable. It puts you in a place of wanting to be helpful, but not knowing always what to do. So on that, my advice is just try things. You know, if it's food, do food. If you're good at just listening, just listen to the person. Maybe they just want to cry, and you hold them, or like I said earlier, sit with them. Anyway, I like the way this started, the write up, and it was a wonderful quote to start with. So we appreciate that, Glenn. Glenn, did you want to make a comment, anything on what we've said or the quote itself before we move forward?
Yeah, I do. For those of you who know me off show, you know I'm pretty straight down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I've got to smile to myself at that. It is true. But in terms of, it's Jena actually, but.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's all good. No worries. I just thought I'd bring that up.
No, thank you for reminding me.
I've been pulled into line already a couple of times.
Yeah, my apologies. I don't want to say someone's name incorrectly. So my apologies. Janae is correct. Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Janae and I became very good friends, I think, because each of us was willing to tell the truth with no BS. You call it out. Yep. I lost count of the number of times I told her she was full of it, and you know what? She copped it.
Yeah.
And many times she'd agree, sometimes she wouldn't. But I think that in itself is being empathic, just to be honest with somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can you do than that, really? If you soft soap them and tell them it's all good and you'll be right, what's that do for you?
Nothing.
So I remember I had obviously many conversations, and I said to her, how come you can share such confidential stuff here with myself and with Sandra? She'd spoken with Sandra as well. And yet you can't do it with some other people in your life. And she said, I can't do it because if I share it with them, I might lose something. The fear of being truthful with somebody and laying it out to them was so, I'm trying to think of the word. Fearful, would it be, or would it be the fear of loss, or whatever connotation you want to put upon it?
Sure.
So, abandonment, even.
Abandonment, being left alone, as later said in the write-up. I think it's particularly relevant. So I think there's an obligation on all of us, and a huge lesson is that please be truthful, and just look, you can say it. There's a way to say things, but there's no point in beating around the bush, because ultimately people don't feel better because of it. They feel better when you lay it out for them, and it shows like in her case, she respected me for saying that to her, and I respected her likewise for the feedback that I got as well. So I think that seems to be the cornerstone of a relationship.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Gia says vulnerable question mark. That's
yes, very much so, Gia. Vulnerable. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, so we're gonna scroll down to I'm going to read both quotes again. So the next quote is never underestimate the pain of a person, because in all honesty, everyone is struggling. Some people are just better at hiding it than others. This one's, I'm assuming this is Will Smith, the actor. He does occasionally say some good stuff from time to time, so that's not a surprise. Never underestimate the pain of a person, because in all honesty, everyone is struggling. Some people are just better at hiding it than others. What do you think about this, Jen? Because I've got something I want to say about it as
well. Well, I was going to ask and then answer my own question, but it makes me think, why do people hide their struggle and their pain? And I know for me, couple things. I think I have, for some reason, I have this issue with just being terrified.
Hmm.
Earlier in my life, it was more terrified, but now it's more mild,
Yeah.
with being a bother to people. And I'm the type where I so want to be there for people if they need something, and I'm just joyfully wanting to, um, do things for people. But for some reason, when the tables are turned and it's me that needs something, I'm just so afraid of being a bother,
Hmm.
or a weight, or mainly it's the word bother that bounces around in my head. I don't want to be a bother.
Right.
And maybe too, maybe I've had some fear with, when you really are needing people to gather around you or you're needing help. I think if you are vulnerable, like Gia said, um, what if you get rejected? What if the people that are in your life that you think are going to be there for you, what if it turns out they're not?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe they're not true friends,
Right.
and that's scary.
Yeah.
It's like rejection on a whole other level. It's being rejected when you're in your most needful way,
Right.
or place.
Right.
So that's what I was going to share. So even though I posed the question, like, why do you think people hide it? I know the reasons I have hid it in the
Yeah.
past. And also this whole idea, and this kind of is tied in with church. I've run into this issue more with church people than I have unchurched people. But that whole, and we've talked about on the show before, where everyone's playing church and everyone's acting, or most people are acting. When I
Yeah.
say everyone, that's a quantifier, but
Yeah.
a lot of people are acting like everything's fine when it's not, behind closed doors, or for real, it's just
Right.
not fine. And so when you're surrounded by people everywhere, that you fellowship with or congregate with or
Hmm.
talk with,
Hmm.
that no one ever shares their problems, no one ever asks for help.
Right.
um, you just feel like, if I ask for help, if I put my hand up and ask for help, I'm
Yeah.
just going to stick out like a sore thumb, and I'm going to look
Sure.
weak, and you know um, come across needy or be a bother or whatever. So those are the things I've run into. But what about you, Crips?
Yeah, and inconvenience. While you're talking, I was
Yes.
thinking the part of it is thinking that you're going to be an inconvenience to someone else. But this is something you've talked about before in a church setting, and I think that is the place where you should be able to hold your hand up, as Glenn says, and we've adopted. Hold your hand up and say, "I'm hurting. I'm struggling." If that's the case, and get the help that you need. And it's frustrating to me that the situations that you talk about and the things that I've seen in churches, it's the term "keeping up with the Joneses." It seems like that is in full force in the church. It's wanting to come across as if everything's just great and you're good to go. Like you don't, like everyone else in the world. They might struggle, but you're all good, and they don't share their pain, their personal pain. And I believe, Jen, you mentioned some good reasons why a person wouldn't. Fear of rejection is, they're afraid to be vulnerable, losing the few friends that they think that they have, being looked down upon, being a bother, like you said, Jen, being an inconvenience. Those are all reasons. But regardless of what your reason is, if you don't get the help you need, you don't let someone know that you're struggling. How are you ever going to do it? And why do you feel like you would need to do it alone?
Yeah.
I can say that I handled a lot of things alone for a long time. It's actually been quite an adjustment for me to be with someone that genuinely cares about me. And I've shared this with her. This is not a surprise. I've dealt with stuff on my own. So it was a learning process for me to be able to understand that I didn't have to do that anymore. It took a while to sink in that I not only don't have to deal with alone, but I have someone that I can share everything with that genuinely wants me to share. That wants me, if I'm struggling, she wants me to say, "Hey, I'm struggling." And if you
Yep.
don't say it, yeah, if you don't tell someone you're struggling, you're stealing from them the opportunity to help.
Yes.
You're stealing from them, especially a believer. And I say this because a believer knows that the Bible says that we're supposed to be there. We're supposed to show love to one another. So if you don't tell someone you're struggling, you're robbing them of the gift that they want to give to you.
Yeah. And even the opportunity.
Yeah. Now, about this struggling thing. So when I read the quote, Gia put in, why assume, wait, let me find it. I don't want to misquote it. Gia says, why assume everyone is struggling? I get that, Gia. Maybe this is something that you haven't seen. But from what I've seen and what we've seen, and when I say we, I mean the three of us, and since doing True Story Live. Your mic's on, Glenn. Did you mean?
Okay. No, it's okay. I was laughing at Gia's comment to myself.
Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't to yourself. Just
it was out loud.
It was out loud. And the clickety clack on the keyboard. But I love you. I love you. And when you're struggling, let me know, because I definitely want to be there for you. But in all seriousness, Gia, we've seen a lot of people that are struggling. You can see it in their comments. You can see it by what they say, the way they say it. It's all over the place, especially in the chats. So this is something that we have responded to here at True Story Live with the write-ups that we kind of focus on, because we have seen this struggle that people seem to have. Now, maybe there are people that don't struggle, but from what I've seen, there are a lot of people that are struggling, but they don't want to admit it. That's my perception. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. So I don't necessarily think it's an assumption. I think that it's based on some evidence that people see. Glenn, did you want to comment on anything on this quote? Never underestimate the pain of a person, because in all honesty, everyone is struggling. Some people are just better hiding it than others. What do you think?
True. I think for some reason people think that by not opening up that they're some kind of a hero. Right. I guarantee it, they're not.
Right.
That's all I need to say, really. And it doesn't make you a hero. It just makes you feel bad or worse.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. You know what? I turned my volume on my phone up earlier, and I will just take care of that right now. Okay. There's that. Okay. The next question, regardless of what level we connect with another person, how can anyone ever really know what lies within the mind of another? Well, if they don't share it with us, I don't see how we can. If it's as you said later in the write-up, it was Jena's secret. If it's a secret, you're keeping something to yourself. So again, you're not giving anyone the opportunity to help. And we can't read minds. I mean, there are people, I guess, out there somewhere that claim that they can read minds, but I've not met a person that can. So we can't get into the mind of another. I mean, we can try, I guess. I mean, we can piece together conversations that they have, and try to come up with something and try to have an understanding of what a person's going through. But without them sharing it, I don't think you can. I don't think it's possible. Anyone want to comment on that?
I just want to say I completely agree, and that's why being open and vulnerable with people that you trust is really important. So they don't have to try to mind read.
Right.
Exactly.
Even if we did, would it help, do you think? I believe that's referring to the question I read above. How can anyone ever really know what lies within the mind? And then even if we did, would it help, do you think? I mean, a little, knowing someone else's mind, knowing what they're struggling with would be helpful. But even if we knew, that person has to want to be helped. I learned this lesson a long time ago. You can't help a person until they want to be helped. You can try to bail someone out time after time, over and over and over again, but until they really want help, there's not a whole lot you can do. So, where does empathy fit this picture? What lessons can we take from Jena's life and apply those lessons going forward? So, another quote: empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. I would say some of the lessons are, so the first one, the empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others. And I'm going to start with you, Jen, because I feel like you've dealt with this one a lot and you might have a lot to say about this one.
Could you go first? I just took a bite of a hot dog.
Sure. Yeah. So the empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others. Now, I'll use Jen for an example. She is a very empathetic person, extremely empathetic. She has a wonderful heart. And I've watched, and she's getting way better at it. But after everything that she went through in an abusive marriage for 14 years, and then before that, I wouldn't call her family life necessarily abusive, but I would say that I think this is fair to say that she didn't get some of the support that would have been very helpful in molding her self-esteem. I think that's a very fair way to say it, I hope.
Yes, that's really good.
So I have seen her beat herself up, either when she makes a mistake or, she's dealing with emotional stuff from the past and it comes up. And I see a lot of time in the past, at least, being spent on, kind of being mad at herself that this stuff is coming up in the first place. And I see her being empathetic towards others, but she's had to work on being empathetic toward herself.
Yeah.
So if one person struggles with it, there has to be another person that struggles with that. So you can be the most empathetic person in the world to other people, but if you're not doing that for yourself, there's a discrepancy there. This is implying that empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others. So if you're showing others empathy, then why are you unable to do that for yourself? Why? What is it about you where it's fine to show empathy for others, but when it comes to you, you're harder on yourself than you are with anyone else?
I think for me, do you mind? Were you done? I didn't want to
I am
interrupt you.
done. Yeah,
Okay.
you're good. You're good.
I think for me, I wasn't extended empathy.
Right.
And empathy with my childhood is an interesting word to use. Maybe grace, understanding, support when I make mistakes, stuff like that. And then in the marriage I was in, oh my gosh, it's just like a whole other ball game of me not being able or allowed to be human.
Right.
And so, and we've talked about this a lot. It's interesting when you're with someone who the things they don't say and the things that they do say are very destructive and put downs and crazy critical. It got to a point where he didn't have to say those things anymore
Right.
to me
Right.
because my mind picked it up and I would say it to myself in my mind or even out loud sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was almost like carrying on the abuse in a specific area where he didn't have to anymore. I would beat myself up. And one of the other things I was going to say, can you read it one more time? This particular
The quote. Or not the quote. Yeah, the empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others.
This kind of struck something in my mind. When I think about my ex, and I think about the lack of empathy that he extended me. Just the freedom to be myself, the freedom to make
Right.
mistakes.
Right.
But you know what? When I think about him, he was way harder on himself in a lot of ways. And I think when it comes to showing empathy to yourself, you cut yourself slack, you give yourself grace, you're kind to yourself, you're loving to yourself, and he was none of those things. And I don't think he could empathize with. I don't think he even wanted or could look at himself in the deeper parts of himself in order to give himself empathy, to even look at the pain or the loss or the abuse that he had gone through. So why would he extend that to me if he didn't learn and doesn't extend that to himself? It just made me think about that.
Mm,
Not that it excuses it,
no.
but it's an interesting aha moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If he was hard on, like you said, it's not an excuse. If a person's hard on themselves, that doesn't excuse them being hard on someone else. It really, really doesn't. And to me, that just says he had his own issues, and I'm sure you know that more
Yeah.
than I do. He had his own stuff, but if you don't deal with your own stuff, it's going to spill out towards others eventually. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see how it can't.
But then on the flip side, you've got people like what you mentioned that I've struggled with being incredibly empathic to other people.
Yeah.
But when it comes to me,
Right.
just being so critical of myself.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really hard. But you've been God, and you've been really helpful, Glenn, too.
Yeah.
Just cutting myself a break and remembering how to let myself be a human being that makes mistakes. And I tell you, one thing that Glenn said a while back really helped me about making mistakes as a part of learning. And it seems like such a duh, like, little duh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just had, since I was a kid, it just pounded into me that making mistakes were not okay.
Yeah.
And it was just a really hot button topic with my dad and then with my ex. So anyway, a little off topic, but just wanted to share.
No, I believe it. I believe it relates. It fully relates. What about you, Glenn? The empathy you show to yourself is just as important as that which you show to others. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I was the idiot. Up until about 40, I believed that empathy was about sacrificing yourself to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Go figure that one. I thought the more you give everything to someone else or others, but you take nothing for yourself.
Right.
That's a lesson that took quite a long time to sink in. But once it did, I see the 100% relevance and importance of it. Yeah. So yeah, but even thinking that I would do that is just dumbfounding to me now. But like sacrificing yourself, like what?
Sure.
Did it, pure and simple.
Same here.
How long can a person keep that up? If you're pouring everything that you have out, but nothing's coming back in, how long can you keep that up? I don't think very long. Eventually something's got to give.
Yeah, your health.
Right. Yeah. It can affect every area of your life, honestly. Before we move on to the next one, I kind of pointed at Jen a little bit at the beginning, but make no mistake about it, I've struggled with this too. I am hard on myself. I feel like I've gotten better as I've matured and as I've learned how to be kinder to myself, but I am hard on myself. And Jen has had to help me with that. Fortunately for me, it's a couple areas where I still struggle when things don't work out the way I hope that they do when that happens. And Jen and I call them tapes. I'm sure we didn't come up with that title, but it's the idea of the loops, the tapes that run in your head that have been programmed by someone else. And as Jen said, after a while, the person doesn't need to continue to say the same things because it's on the tape. It's been recorded in your mind, and you're running that back on your own. And then eventually you don't have to run it back on your own. It runs on its own. It just plays. And the only way to put an end to those is to first realize what's happening and then to do something to tear out that tape or destroy the tape and put positive programming in there. Because we are, the way that we're made, in my opinion, we are made to be programmed. We are made to, as children, we're picking up on what our parents tell us and what they teach us and what schools teach us and what society teaches us, and grandfathers and grandmothers and all over the place. We're a blank slate when we're born into this world, and things go on there, and it's good things and bad things. And it's the good things that we carry with us, then that's great. But when it's the bad programming, that's often what we need to change when we become an adult. We realize, hey, I was taught something that I believed that was a lie, and I don't want to believe that anymore. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that. In my own experience and my own perception of what I've struggled with, it's a difficult thing. So it's, to me, it's, I'm sure you guys have heard the term garbage in, garbage out. And it's not just about what we eat, it's about what we take into our minds. And we're like computers, you know. It has been said that we remember everything. We can't always recall everything, but we remember every conversation. We remember everything we see and hear. And even if we're not aware of it on a conscious level, somewhere inside, we do pick up on all of that, and it affects us. So there's that one. Next one, don't be.
Oh, real quick, I would love for, I don't know if Glenn wants to read it, but I don't know how you say his name. Is it OUDC?
OUDC?
Made some really good points. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Let me scroll up. He said, have you ever thought about a person who is empathetic may confuse their own emotions with someone they may be picking up on? Which I have done this. and I don't know if anybody else has, but where you're so sensitive to the emotional atmosphere of the people around you that it's almost like you take on their emotions. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, I don't know if you remember, Jason, the artwork I did with the fur coats.
Well, sure.
Trench coats. I had this art that I had done for counseling, and it was a picture of me and my ex, and he had this cloud over his head. And one of his favorite things to say was "good grief," and I'm thinking, oh no. But in one picture I was happy, and he came up to me, and he was wearing this long trench coat, fur coat with all these labels, like, angry and depressed, anxious, all of these different words.
Yeah.
And he ended up putting an identical coat on me, and it was like I went from happy to my face matched his, having a huge frown on my face, and there were weights attached to the bottoms of the coats. And I went through this where I'd be fine, and he'd come into our store, and it was just like this weight was put on me, and I couldn't. I think sometimes I thought it was mine, but other times I knew it was his.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't help but feel his feelings. And the other part of what he said is, if one is empathetic, I recommend they know themselves, as it may require this to make a difference of what is yours and what is someone else's. And I think that's great advice.
I would agree.
Yeah. That's helped me a lot, actually, learning how to do that, because for a long time I didn't know how. I was such a codependent, such a people pleaser.
Sure.
And I think there's a part of my heart that likes feeling other people's pain, like like not in a, weird way, but being empathetic, being able to sit with someone in their feelings. But for me, in that last marriage, it went to a completely different place.
Right.
And I couldn't not let it go there. I couldn't not. I tried, not letting it get to me, but it was, that coat was continually shoved on me, and I put it on. It was a shove on and also a take on kind of situation. It's just the Lord.
Yeah, I do indeed remember that. It was very moving to me, and I remember you and I talking about it, and I had mentioned, I don't expect you to remember this, but I had mentioned, you can change those. I mean, you could take the coat off altogether, or you could leave the coat on and take all the tags, the negative tags off, and replace them with good tags.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do
And I
remember
believe
that.
that's what you're doing. That is literally what you're doing, which I'm grateful for. I love seeing you heal and grow and change. And I think that's true for anybody with me, anybody that's trying to work on themselves and trying to heal. I'm the biggest cheerleader for that.
Yeah.
I want people to grow and change, and I want people to break their programming. So while we have this break, before I move to the next one, I'll say hello, an official hello to OUDC. Also, Journey's Wake popped in, and Joel More Than a Flame came in too. I just hadn't said hello to you guys, so I just wanted to welcome you to the broadcast. So thank you for being here.
Chris, can I add something, please? If you
Well,
don't mind?
of course. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add to that, I think it poses the question, a very important one, and that is, if you are not authentically empathic or empathetic, as you would call it, towards yourself, is it even possible to be empathetic towards another person? Because, yeah, what is that? How do you do that if you don't know yourself? I mean, I can relate to myself. I think what I thought was being empathetic to someone else when I had no idea about it was garbage.
Yeah.
I was doing that "you'll be right, buddy" sort of trick. Oh, put your arm around your shoulder, buddy. Oh, you'll be right. It's rubbish.
Right.
It was only when I got on my own page that I was able to understand, maybe through my own experience, maybe what someone else was feeling, and relate to it. So I think it's a fair question.
I think it's definitely a fair question. I just right off the start, I would say that there are people that do have a gift. They seems like they have a gift of being able to sense someone else's feelings and respond to them more than they're able to do with themselves. And I say gift loosely because the way you describe it, and I would agree, if they're doing that for other people, then they're not focusing on their own empathy towards themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is disastrous. And so Jen refers to herself of having been a people pleaser. So she did this all the time. She did have empathy towards other people. In fact, for 14 years, she, in many ways, had empathy for her abuser. And it's not just her, it's many scores of women and men who are in these abusive relationships who set their lives aside. I'm not saying it's right or a good thing, but they are capable of doing it somehow. I mean, your point, Glenn, is a good one, and I agree with you. The only thing I can think is that, yes, if you have the gift of empathy, it seems like you're able to have that for someone else, even if you don't for yourself. I'm not saying it's healthy. In fact, I think it's very destructive. Self-destructive.
I agree.
But I have seen it. It seems like people are more capable of being empathetic towards another. Now, playing off that, if a person did know themselves, they're on their own page, I'm paraphrasing you, but you're on your own page, you understand yourself more, then you can be empathetic towards someone else, and it doesn't take away from yourself. It doesn't empty your own tank, so to speak. And I think that's the best possible place to be in, where you can be empathetic towards others, but it's not in a people-pleasing way. It's just because that's who you are, and that's a gift you've been given, and then you can give freely. It goes back to that same thing about putting your own oxygen mask on before you help someone with theirs. I mean, that is such a simple analogy, but it's one that works. To me, it works. You do that for yourself, and then you're going to free yourself up to be able to help other people in a way better way, for lack of a better way to say it. So there's that. These are some great conversations, in my opinion, and this is an important one that we're about to go over now. So the next one is, don't be too proud to reach out and ask for help when the train is running away. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that when I read this one initially, that we're going to have some things to say about this. So I'll start, and it's not just Jena, it's a lot of people, and I don't know if it's being proud. Maybe it is. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, maybe that is the problem. Whatever the problem is, again, if you don't ask for help when things are falling apart, how are you gonna get out of that situation? How are you gonna get better if you're not willing to hold your hand up and say, "Look, I need help." I mean, I see this happen all the time. And then there are other people out there. It seems like all they're ever doing is asking for help. But as I said earlier, if you're not ready to change, if you're not ready to accept help for real, then it's not going to work. You're going to keep continuing the same patterns over and over and over again. But if you don't reach out and ask for help, then there's nothing anybody can do. You're pretty much on your own.
And you might be let down by some people that you thought would be there who end up not being there for you.
Mhm.
But then you're also missing out on the times of experiencing people that maybe you didn't think would be there for you that step up.
Yeah, you might
and
be
that help.
surprised. You might be surprised at who steps up. It might be someone you don't even know yet
Yeah,
that steps. It could be a perfect stranger.
that's
You're-
happened to us.
Yeah.
We've had strangers help us financially, and it's very humbling,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but it's also awe-inspiring, when it comes to the human race and just the hearts of people.
That is, you know what, Jen? That's a perfect example. So I'm going to be vulnerable and transparent in this way, since you mentioned it. So after COVID, Jen and I did fine financially during COVID because we'd sold the townhouse, our family's townhouse, and so when we moved into this apartment, we were fine, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful to not worry about money and not struggle, and it was great for us when we first moved here. We call it our little bubble, and we were able to enjoy each other and enjoy being in our new place. And Jen was able to relax after being in the 14-year abusive marriage, and I was able to relax from having taken care of my grandmother for 2.5 years. And before that, I was just working constantly in order to pay the bills and make rent. So both of us got a chance to really
Breathe.
recuperate, breathe. Yeah, breathe. And then jobs weren't very plentiful at the time. And as I'm sure everyone's aware, eventually the money runs out. And that's what happened to us. And we'd been struggling. I mean, Jen was working, doing the best she could, and I started with this job that I have, but it just wasn't enough. It was too slow for the amount of money that we needed every month. And I won't name names and things like that, but we have a dear sister that she has her own broadcast, and she just happened to call Jen just out of the blue, and they were talking about it, and I just mentioned to her, that we were struggling. I didn't ask for help or anything. I just told her what was going on, and she did a broadcast on YouTube, and you wouldn't believe the amount of outpouring that we had. And I won't say how much it was, but it rescued us.
Yeah.
And we also had a personal, someone that is a friend that gave us money, and it helped us. It helped us not get evicted. It helped us to be able to keep our phone on and our electric and all that stuff. Now, Jen will tell you, I hate being in that situation. I don't like asking people for help. I don't. I mentioned earlier, people just seem that's all they do is ask people for help all the time. That's not me. I in the past, if I could work it out on my own, I would work it out on my own, and call that pride or whatever. Maybe it is pride. Maybe that's something I need to work on. But it is difficult for me to ask for help. It is. But I learned one more thing. I learned from that. If I hadn't brought it up, if she hadn't called that day, first of all, that was a miracle. And if she hadn't talked to Jen and I hadn't told her what we were struggling with, how is that help ever going to come? If no one knows that you're struggling, do they even have the opportunity to help? I would say they don't. I mean, miracles happen. God knows what we're going through. So it's possible that, things happen, checks come in the mail and all that, but without telling someone, in most cases, I don't know how you can get the help you need. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. I just was going to mention, hopefully you don't mind, but we had we'd actually previously, before talking to this sister in the Lord, we had asked a family member for help. Um, and, uh,
My dad,
oh,
just we can be honest about it.
okay.
I asked my
That
dad,
was
right?
totally up to you.
Yeah.
And he took a while to get back to Jason. And then he said that he wanted to seek counsel on whether or not he could help us or wanted to
Right.
help us or felt led to help us. Um, and I kind of felt like that probably wasn't a good idea to accept help from him just because
Right.
of Jason and his relationship in the past.
Yep.
So even these people coming through for us was huge because we were able to take that off the table and tell him, okay, you know what, we actually don't need your help. We're good. And I do believe that was a God thing because I think,
Yep.
you know, there's double binds with family, and
Yeah.
especially when there's a role that they have you cast in and
Yeah.
you're not that person anymore. But
Right.
unfortunately to them, they don't see the change in the growth, you know.
Right.
So it's unfortunate, but that was also a miraculous thing.
It was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish, babe.
Oh, no, it was something else I was going to mention.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought that up. And I'll be honest, I was very upset with him. First of all, when your son, if it were me, and my son needed help, I don't care how old he is, my son is struggling, and I can see if he was paying attention, he could see I'm newly married, and COVID. You know, we don't want to lay everything at the feet of COVID, of course, but things are difficult for a lot of people, and I would see that, and I would do anything I could do for not just my son if I had one, but anyone. If I'm able to help, I would help. And it was very frustrating to me to have him not get back to me for 3 days. And then when he got back, he said he had to, like Jen said, seek counsel about whether he could help or not. Now, people can help or not help. That's up to them. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying personally that was a difficult thing for me to go through. But Jen was very supportive in that way, and I believe she felt like God was telling her that it wasn't a good idea to accept it. And then so when that help came through from a different source, it just confirmed many things for me, that there are people out there, even strangers, that are willing to help, and sometimes you need that. And if it's pride, whatever the reason is that you're not reaching out to someone, and we're not just talking about finances, it could be anything. It could be anything that you struggle with. You have to ask for help. You have to let someone know that you're going through something. So whatever, like I said, whatever it is, if it's pride, whatever, if it's fear of abandonment or someone not being there for you, if no one knows, then you don't give them the opportunity to help if they can.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something else, Jen?
No, I just was going to read Stephanie's post, but you could do that. And Glenn posted it again just to make sure that we saw it.
Okay. Does Glenn, do you want to respond first before I move to the comment, or would you like me to do the comment first?
I think I'd like you. I think my response is going to be in relation to what Stephanie said. So I'd like you please to read what she said, and then we'll go with it.
Okay, perfect. So Stephanie says, True Story Live, what if you don't really see that the train is running away until it's jumped the track and there's no one that can fix it? What if it's too much damage? That's a great question. What if you don't really see that the train is running away until it's jumped the track and there's no one that can fix it? What if it's too much damage? And we'll go to you, Glenn, to answer that first.
Very, very difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, I don't have any rational explanation or any rational answer other than it's up to you to make an evaluation on a personal level as to where the point is. And when you find it, you then don't ignore it. I think each of us intrinsically has some idea of when it's getting over the top.
What do you mean by the point, Glenn?
I beg your
The
pardon,
point where
Jen?
what did you mean by the
Well,
point? Do you mean that?
I think there are signs within each of us and differently that we know when things are getting tough. I've mentioned before, in my first marriage, I did some things which are totally out of character. My behavior changed. I knew immediately I needed help, and I put my hand up because I knew that is not me. I knew it was a cry for help in my attitude and my actions. I think from what I hear from other people, it's similar. They get to a point when they get to the sort of the end of their limit. Things do, the subtle signs are there if you're prepared to look at them.
Yeah.
So, but for Stephanie, there's no logical answer to this. It's so personal. Do I believe that putting your hand up for help after the train is bolted is still worthwhile? Of course I do.
Yeah.
I would hate to think it's too late for anything. I think it's better to put your hand up regardless of where you are.
Right.
As soon as you feel it, you do it.
Right. Jen, you want to take a stab at it?
I liked what Glenn had said about looking at the point of where it jumped track, because I think, especially when we didn't see it happening until it happens, like we didn't see the buildup, you know, I think it's very important. I don't know if this is the point that Glenn was trying to make, but I think it's very important to spend a little bit of time to look back at when it jumped the track.
Yeah.
Because usually, I mean, it can be things that other people have done or you've done, or a mixture of the two, or maybe something you haven't done or didn't react to or whatnot.
Sure.
But there's usually something there, and I think honestly, hindsight is just such a gift from God,
Sure.
because we can look back at this point in time where the train jumped the track and find out what exactly happened, and dissect it, so that we don't make the same mistake, or we
Right.
don't allow that same thing to happen. Because I don't know why. I don't know if it's because we're creatures of habit, or I'm not sure what. Maybe it could be a bunch of things, but sometimes we don't assess where the train jumped the track. We're just doomed to repeat it, if we don't pull it apart, you know what I mean, and process
Yeah.
what exactly was going on, especially if we weren't paying attention to the things that may have, like red flags is a way of describing it. We
Sure.
weren't seeing the red flags leading up to the train jumping off the track. We can just, like I said, be doomed to repeat it if we don't look at those things that we
Yeah.
either ignored or didn't see, or, you know, does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. Before I comment, OUDC said a couple of good things about this. Good point, Glenn. Once you spot something, don't ignore it. By not ignoring it doesn't mean you have to go extreme, but take the time to address it, analyze, determine the good or bad of it, etc. I think that's good advice. So that kind of fits into. I agree with Glenn. There's not a logical, definitive answer for this. I agree, though, that regardless of how bad the damage is or how far off the track something is, while you're still breathing, and not just Stephanie, anybody, while you're still breathing, while blood's still coursing through your veins, you have the opportunity to change your situation. And it may seem hopeless. You may not have the wherewithal or the ideas of how to get out of the situation you're in. You may not have the money. You may not have the time. You may not have a place to go. But what do you tell someone? What do you tell a battered wife who's being beaten or abused by the person they're with? Unfortunately, in some circles, you tell them, "Oh, well, just pray about it," you know, and you continue to accept the abuse, and you don't get yourself to safety. That's not. I don't agree with that. You know,
Yeah.
the first thing to do is stop the bleeding. In my opinion, first thing to do is stop the bleeding, and then you can go back and look at where the train came off the track so you don't repeat it. I agree with that 100%. I think there's an order of which to do things. So to me, it doesn't matter how much damage there is. You need help, not just you, Stephanie. I'm not pointing you out. You made the comment, so I'm referring to the comment. Regardless of who it is and what the situation is, at some point, people need help. You need someone to help you. I mean, we have a huge homeless problem in America, and I've always wondered, like, how did that person get to that place? Usually it didn't happen overnight. It happened with a series of things, and until they got to the point where they're on the street and they don't have a home. And that's always fascinated and confused me in many ways. And I was mentioned Atlanta earlier, and they have a ministry for an outreach ministry for the homeless, and they put out a magazine and they help people get back on their feet by selling the magazine. And it's not very much, but they sell it on the street, and they sell a few magazines, and that gives them a little bit of money to live on, and just doing something positive for themselves to be able to get back on track. And so I've read a lot of these stories in the magazine. People get a chance, that have experienced this get a chance to tell their story. And some of the stories are the same. Sometimes it's being abused, and it's drug use and alcoholism and all this. And I'm not just saying it in a passe way. I mean, people struggle with that stuff. But they're telling their story. It's not a secret. They're not just allowing themselves to be homeless. I think when it changes for someone is when they reach out for help. That's the first step sometimes, is for you to admit that, hey, the train is off the track and I can't do it by myself. It should be okay to realize that you can't do it by yourself. That's the only way it's ever going to change, in my opinion, is for you to acknowledge what the situation is and to reach out, not try to. I really hate the term "pull yourself up by your own bootstraps." I just really don't like it.
It really grates on your nerves.
Well, it grates on your nerves, and also the teach a man to fish or give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. Yeah, that may be true. First of all, it's not in scripture. People attribute it to scripture all the time. That's not what the story is. In fact, people came to see Jesus speak, and they didn't bring any food. He didn't say, well, go fish, go fish. You don't have any food? We'll go out there and get you a stick and some wire and find some bait and go feed yourselves. That's not what Jesus did. I'll get off that. But sometimes you don't have bootstraps to pull yourself up with. You don't own boots.
I don't even have any shoes.
Don't have any shoes, don't have any straps to go with them. So sometimes you need help. And my attitude's changed about a lot about this. I would classify, in the past, I would have classified myself as
Bootstrap
conservative.
Okay.
Well, conservative Republican, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't anti-homeless, but my attitude was, well, get a job. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up in a home where I had a job delivering papers and mowing lawns, and I had to work for my own money to go to putt golf and play video games. That was all I cared about, and going to movies and stuff. But I had to earn my own money to do that, and that was okay. I'm glad that they taught me how to work and get a job and stuff like that. So I grew up working. I didn't grow up. I didn't have any real financial struggles probably until my mid 30s. I mean, I was always working, always had money. I had a vehicle that I used and started a business, small neighborhood business at 16. So I always worked. And so until I went through it myself, I had a real skewed understanding of people that struggle. I really did. And it's funny how life, and I would say God, but you could say life, has a way of working out through the hard knocks that it gives, things that you're a jerk about, at least for me.
Yeah.
Things that I'm a jerk about and I'm not looking at with empathy, that's no longer an issue. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I was taught some lessons and I learned them. That's the one thing. I've made mistakes and I've done things that I'm not proud of, but I've learned from those mistakes, fortunately. I don't keep repeating the same things again and again. Anyway, so there's that. So on this one, don't be too proud to reach out and ask for help when the train is running away. It's super important, whether it's off the track or however much damage there is. Just please. I know the situation seems impossible, and whether you're a believer or not, now a believer would know with God all things are possible, and that's even in the quote for Jena. And I believe that full-heartedly. It's true. Regardless, though, you have to look past the impossibility of the situation you're in order to see any hope. Hope is one of the best things that there is, no matter what you've been through. Hope is a sustaining idea, and without hope, what do you have? You know. Okay. I think we spent enough time on that one. That was good. We got a lot out of it. That one statement. So the next statement is treat each living moment as a privilege. And we'll start out with Glenn. We haven't heard as much from him because I've been talking for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, seems like.
Yeah, well, after seeing Janae, and I think it just emphasised the point that it's very easy to waste and throw away your life.
Yeah.
And it is a privilege. And I think I mentioned before, if we see or saw the carnage that can be left behind when you unexpectedly exit the world, maybe you would think a bit differently.
Yeah.
So it is a privilege, and I certainly consider it as such.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a gift. You know, I know this is a hard world. It's a, biblically speaking, it's a broken, fallen world. We get it. You know, it's not ideal. I mean, there are plenty of people struggle and go through a lot of hard things. But the fact that we're even here in the first place is a privilege. And if more people realized what a privilege it actually is, I hope you don't have to go through a bunch of bad things until you get to the point where you realize that it is precious. And I don't think society helps very much with this. The idea of human life being of value. I mean, it just seems like the attitude is, oh, you got a problem, I'll just get rid of it. That's the idea. I mean, life, and I'm not going on a rant about right to choose and all that. I'm just saying that that's an example of where you fix your problems by just getting rid of it, and that shapes our ideas of life. I think it is precious. I think it's a gift. Every day that I live, especially for me, being in this relationship with Jen, I am every day grateful that I have her, and every day I wake up, regardless of what situation I'm going through, I wake up every day and I thank God for it. It's a wonderful life, even with all the things that we struggle with. It is just a wonderful life. What do you think, Jen? Treat each living moment as a privilege.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal to have. The fact that we have air in our lungs and our hearts beating, just those two things in and of itself is enough to be in awe of and grateful for.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
a privilege, yeah. It's a privilege to be alive and be here and on this earth and experiencing all these things.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. And I'll admit that there are some times that I kind of click into autopilot and I forget to live out of that place of feeling like it's a privilege and
Sure.
being grateful, But the last couple years, I have probably been more consistent with being in awe of God and very grateful for not just every single day, but every single moment.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to live, and to look back at, I was on autopilot in my last marriage. I just was so miserable. It was almost like I had to numb myself, and in that numbing, from the pain, and the pain and the emotional distress and the abuse, that I wasn't even allowing myself to even realize I was living in and experiencing.
Right.
Had to just be on autopilot to just make it through the day.
Yeah.
And so now, in this place that I'm at now, I look back at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah. How
just
did you
not
even
a
do
way
it?
to live. I
Yeah.
don't even know.
I don't know.
But even experiencing that makes me so much more grateful even now. I don't know if I'd be as grateful for the breath in my lungs and my heartbeat, just being here, existing. I think it's made it all the sweeter. So
Yeah.
there are many reasons, ones I know and ones that I don't know yet, as to
Right.
why God allowed that to happen, and why I'm grateful it happened. As
Well,
strange as
sure.
that might sound.
No, it doesn't sound strange at all. I mean, some things you understand and some things you're learning. And I think eventually you'll know all the reasons why. And but I am glad that you're not in the place that you were, and I'm glad that you're not living on autopilot. But I understand why you would. I don't know how else you could have gotten through that
Yeah.
without some kind of cruise control or autopilot or being there. I mean, you're in some ways paying the price for that.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody listening has. Oh, I'm sorry. You weren't done. Go ahead.
I was just saying you're paying the price for that now because of, when you do that, when you live on autopilot, when you stop, when you're out of cruise control, then a lot of the stuff comes back up. And it's good that it does, because you can deal with it then at that point where you're in a different place. And that's the case for you, I think.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever gone through this in a place in your life where you feel like you've been on autopilot. For me, I honestly felt like my body was a robot, and that I was sitting, or not just sitting, but strapped into this chair behind this big windshield. And I was just observing life happening,
Right.
but wasn't actually living it.
Engaged.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was so weird, super, super weird.
Yeah.
So integrating back into actually experiencing life, and
Yeah.
not feeling like an observer of somebody else, it's just so strange.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Jen.
grateful. Yeah.
Hello, while we have a minute, hello to David, and also Switch has been in here for a little bit and I didn't have a chance to say hello. So hello to Switch and hello to David. We're glad that you guys are here. It's good to see you. Okay. When people speak, actually listen to what they have to say and what they don't say. When people speak, actually listen to what they have to say and what they don't say. We actually did a broadcast on listening. This was before we took a year off, but it was still a good broadcast. It was still meaningful. With the work that I do, one of the things that they went over is how to be an active listener. It's very important in customer service, because if you don't understand what the problem is that you're trying to help with, then how can you help someone? That they're reaching out to fix a problem, and if you don't understand what their problem is, then what are you doing? I mean, there's no point. So it's important to actively listen. So in terms of what we're talking about tonight, if you're going to take the time to be there while someone else is speaking, try to learn how to listen. And I like the second part, what they don't say. It may take more time to be good at this, of understanding by the things that someone is not saying, to know what's in their mind, to know what they're struggling with. But it is something that we can all learn, both active listening and paying attention to what's not being said. I think I feel like I'm fairly good at this. I can always be better, and I know Jen is good at this, and Glenn is very good at this. But the way Glenn handles it, I think the direct approach and just asking the questions. And I've talked about this before, but it's maddening sometimes asking the same questions. If he doesn't get the answer he likes, it's just keeps asking the question until it's clear. I guess it's clear to the person.
I think he's leading.
Yeah.
He wants the person he's asking the question of to get to a certain point that he's trying to make, but he wants you to get there. He doesn't want to give it to you. He doesn't want to, twist your arm and make you get it that way. He wants you to come to the conclusion, which I think is great.
Sure.
It is maddening sometimes, but I think it's great.
You notice I didn't say it's not worth it or not helpful. I didn't say that. It's just maddening sometimes. That's all. Hello to Wild RAT. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Yours was on the 19th. So happy birthday. We're glad you are here and enjoying this life. And I hope that, I don't know when you came in, but I hope you're treating each living moment as a privilege. That's kind of what we're talking about. Okay, so on this one, Glenn, when people speak, actively listen to what they have to say and what they don't say. What do you think?
100%. It's amazing if you turn it around when people speak and you look at it. What didn't they tell me? Yeah, very much like Sandra when I met her. She was a piece of cake.
Mm-hmm.
But she was just, people tend sometimes to understate themselves.
Right.
And when they do that, it's sort of like it's a pathway to knowing that there's something more. You just have to, I think maybe it's wavelength, maybe it's tune in, I don't know. But I think it's very relevant to not just consider what's said in isolation. There's always more to it.
Yeah.
I can't give you a specific example,
okay.
But I think it's very obvious when you have a conversation that people tend to leave certain stuff out. You go on a date and say someone just tends to avoid something, or it's noticeably avoided. Surely that makes you sit up and think, why aren't we discussing this?
Yeah.
I think I think what they don't say is in many respects more important. So there you go. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Before we move on from this one, Stephanie says, True Story Live, what if you realize that people don't actually listen to what you say and don't realize that cry for help on set? Stephanie, this is so frustrating. I have felt that my whole life, that people don't listen. I've had more arguments with my family about something that I already went over. I said it out loud. I didn't have the issue with not being able to communicate what I'm feeling. So when you're arguing with someone and they're acting as if this is the first time they're hearing whatever the situation is, and you realize that they didn't listen to you when you said it the first time, that is super frustrating. I don't know what to say about that other than I understand. Unfortunately, this is a huge problem with people not listening. So we're saying when people speak, actually listen to what they have to say. We shouldn't have to say that. People should listen. I mean, what's the point of having relationships if the person's not listening to you at all? I mean, what's the point? I mean, how does it ever go anywhere? I mean, I guess, it's like the Peanuts cartoon when the teachers speak, wah, 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 wah. It's just like there's no actual words. It's just they can't understand or don't care to understand what you're saying. So I get it. I would say that if that happens, go to someone else. Go until you find someone that's willing to listen. There are people out there that care. There are people out there that will listen. There are boards on Facebook of people that do listen and do make comments. There are groups to join where people care and make comments. There are groups that you can go to where people will actually listen. I've mentioned, the problem may not be alcohol or family of an alcoholic or anything like that, but Al-Anon, you don't have to be someone that struggled with that. You can just go and listen to people's stories and you'll have an opportunity to speak. That may not be the best thing for you or for others. I'm just saying that there are people out there that will listen, but I empathize with what you're saying. It seems like there's a lot of people that don't listen, and it's frustrating. Anyone want to comment on that before we move forward? Okay. Next one. Everyone responded to that one, I believe. Yeah. Okay. The last one of these is perhaps you have more lessons to add. So, guys, if you want to add anything to this, please feel free to do so. You can add that in the chat, or you can put it on the description. Stephanie's really good about adding her comments, and we appreciate those. We appreciate everyone else who's made comments to us. Hello to Nathan, who popped in. It's good to see you, buddy. We were talking about you at the top of the show, so if you didn't get a chance to hear that, definitely listen. I was telling them the story about your email where you accused me of using a term that I've never used. Aussies instead of Aussies. We were laughing about that. So welcome. I hope you're having an excellent, I think it's probably morning there. So I hope you're having an excellent morning. Okay. So
I have a question to add.
Sure.
What would you suggest someone do if someone's not listening?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking to someone and you notice they're not listening, is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I would say advocating for yourself in that situation is very important, and pointing out that you feel like they're not listening is the only thing you can do. And if they react defensively or angrily at that, then to me that you have what you need to know right there, that they're not the person to talk to about this.
That's a good point. What about you, Glenn?
I agree with Cripps. I know sometimes Sandra will say to me, hey, you're not listening to me. Well, if she doesn't tell me what she's perceiving, how am I supposed to know about it? All that does is allows me to refocus and say, well,
right,
this is what I heard. You don't get into the justification mode. If someone says to you, you're not listening, the truth of it is, in their mind, you're not listening. It doesn't matter what you say.
Right.
It's irrelevant. The fact, but you need, as you said, Cripps, 100%. People have got to advocate for themselves. Otherwise, how do you get anywhere? It's just going to go on, and then a week later, someone's going to say to you, "Oh, you remember we had that chat a week ago? Oh, you didn't listen to me, did you?" And,
right.
Well, that's rubbish. No, not. So I'm on your team there, Cripps.
I also think it'd probably be good to move on if it ends up being a constant problem and find people that will listen.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying earlier. There are people that will listen. It's a matter of finding them, and it might take you some time to find someone that will actually listen. We listen here. I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's a small channel, but everyone that is here right now, you guys have a forum, and there are other people in here that listen that have been through their own stuff. There's not a single person that I see in the chat that isn't willing to listen, in my opinion. So you do have at least this forum that you can actually say things, and we will listen. Maybe we can't do anything about it, but we can certainly listen. And I know that the three of us have spent time with people and actually listened, and Glenn more than others, for sure. Jena is not the only person that Glenn has taken time out of his already busy life and taking care of Sandra and everything else that he does to actually pay attention. And this is more than just patting Glenn on the back and say that a boy. This is important. What he's doing is important, and he has tried in many ways to actually be of benefit to people, and it's not lost on me. I see it. Jen has done it. She's involved with a board called Victorious Voices, and it's about other people that have been through narcissistic abuse, and she makes comments on there all the time, and people actually respond, and she takes the time not just to post her own comments on there, but to respond to other people that are struggling. She takes the time to do that. So, and again, it's more than just a pat on the back. I'm saying that if there are two people that are right here that I know actually listen to people, there's got to be someone that's willing to listen. So it is a matter of finding them, advocating for yourself. If someone's not listening, find someone that will listen. You know, you shouldn't have to. Again, you shouldn't have to. I wish that all people would listen. I wish that all people would do the best they can to pay attention to what you're going through and actually try to help. But unfortunately, that's just the way that it is. So,
And I encourage people, if you have someone in your life that doesn't listen, I would encourage you to know that it's not because your problems don't matter or that you don't matter. It's more a reflection of them, because you
yeah.
do matter, you know?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's not a reflection on you, it's a reflection of them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It says more about them than it does about you any day of the week. We've gotten through these points here, but there's a conversation in the chat I want to address. You're talking about Glenn's talking with Gia, I believe, about some of the quote unquote Christian websites out there or programs. We've mentioned before, some of those are horrible. That's one of the reasons why I like this chat so much. I mean, it's not particularly quote unquote Christian, but there are a lot of believers in this chat. And this is a respectful chat. I don't see any fighting in here. I don't see any calling of names or calling people out and saying they're not saved or any of that in here. I mean, first of all, we wouldn't put up with it, but we don't have to worry about it because it doesn't happen. But there are other chats, again, unfortunately, with that tag of being a Christian program or YouTube program or Christian chat. There's more backbiting in that even sometimes than I see in the world. It is excruciating to watch. And I'm ashamed to be someone that calls myself a believer. I don't like the term Christian because it gets thrown around and has lost all meaning, in my opinion. But a believer in Christ, for me, is ashamed when people call themselves Christians and their behavior is like this. And it's out there for everyone to see. Dar's not here tonight. She told a story on one of the Tuesday nights about that happening to her with someone that was a leader. And I guess it was I don't know if he was a pastor or teacher or whatever it was he did, but he said some horrible things to her. And sometimes it's not just saying the horrible things. Sometimes they stalk you and then they get other people involved to say mean, horrible things to you. It's gang stalking in many ways. And I don't know what else to say about it. It is not something that I have patience or tolerance for. But Glenn is right. It does seem to be very prevalent in most of the Christian chat rooms, and it's embarrassing. And I wish it would stop. Anyone want to say anything more about that?
I just said, why would I bother to convince anybody that God does not exist? It's much easier just to say, I respect your point of view.
Yeah.
It's all over then. There's no, as Gia said, what's the point of debate? It's going to get nowhere. Because if people come with the thought, I'm right and you're wrong, it's a total waste of your time.
Yeah.
Let it go. Just acknowledge that we're different. Move on.
Yeah.
Coexist.
Yeah, I agree. Gia says, I like discussions, but debates grieves my spirit. Yeah, I'm with you, Gia. You know, sometimes I'm in the mood to listen to those, but most times not. I also like discussions, but don't like debates. So if everyone would continue to pray for Stephanie, if you pray, and if you don't pray, send your thoughts to Stephanie. She says, I listened to my son. He was that runaway train, and he had a lot he did not say. he was about to turn 21 in a week, but he almost succeeded in taking his own life. I did see your comment earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't mention anything about it. But Stephanie's son apparently tried to commit suicide, and from what I understand, he tried to hang himself, and the branch broke. So I hope, since you put it out there in the chat, I hope it's okay that I mentioned that. I should have asked you first. My apologies. That's horrible, Stephanie. And I'm not a father. I can't imagine how that must feel for you. I just, there's no point in me trying to comment on them because I don't understand how that would be. I do have a nephew and I have 3 nieces, and if that happened with them, I would just be beside myself with grief. So there's nothing else I can add to that. But obviously, when someone's in a situation like that, if you were listening to him and if he didn't say much, he said enough by what he tried to do. So and he needs help. I mean, he needs someone to actually listen and try to help him. And please reach out to us. I mean, I don't know anyone right offhand or how to get him help, but we would want to do everything we could to try to get help that you need. Okay. So we can talk about that off air. I mean, you know how to contact us, so we'll try to do something to help. Okay. Okay. So we got through the points, and we're coming close to the top of the hour. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go over what's left. There's a couple more questions in there that are not highlighted, but there are things I'd like to go over. So Glenn wrote, I don't think Jena would mind me sharing that since February, we had been working on the construct of, and this is the quote, how can you be in a relationship with anybody else when you don't have one with yourself? Now, this quote / question is something that we have talked about in different ways. In terms of how can you love other people if you don't love yourself? Okay. And we really kind of struggle with this one to get the point across. And I remember when we first started talking about this concept, because there are a lot of believers, it's easy to feel like, well, biblically speaking, we're not supposed to care about ourselves. We're supposed to only care about others. And we've fought this battle before in trying to interpret what's being said. And I believe that God does want us to care for ourselves, is love your neighbor as yourself. The implication is pretty clear. We are to love other people. We are to care for others. We are to love one another. But we're also supposed to love ourselves. And as believers, I think that is an imperative, not to the point of being selfish. It's not about selfishness or being self-absorbed. It's about putting your own mask on so that you can be of benefit to other people. It's having the love for yourself that God has for you. And we've made this point several times, and we'll continue to make it until it seems to be understood. And that is that by God sending his son into the world, to me, that's saying that he loved us enough to do that, and that we're not all pieces of garbage. Yes, there's sin. Yes, we're born into a broken, fallen, sinful world. But there is value in us. He saw enough value in us to sacrifice his own son. So this idea, how can you be in a relationship with anybody else when you don't have one with yourself? Again, we've talked about it, but I don't think you can. If you don't know yourself, you don't love yourself, you don't care for yourself, you don't have empathy toward yourself. I think Glenn's point earlier about the empathy was a good one. How can you treat anyone with something that you don't have at all for yourself? Jen, what do you think?
Yeah, it took me a while to kind of wrap my brain around this one when Glenn first talked with you and I about it. Because I didn't really love myself or think about myself for my whole life.
Right.
But I felt like I loved people very deeply.
Right.
And I don't think it necessarily takes away from that. In my opinion, I think I did genuinely love and care about people and empathize with them. but it's
Sure.
on a whole other level when I got to the point where God helped me through, his word, through Glenn, through you, just teaching me to put that oxygen mask on that you mentioned.
Right.
It's just a whole different kind of depth of love
Yeah.
and empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we do that, we're able to flourish even more. And we're in my opinion, more available to actually be of help to others if we're able to do that for ourselves.
And I'll say there's a flip side of that. Because I didn't think about myself at all, and really, I think I had some warped ideas about what love was.
Yeah.
Especially when you struggle with people pleasing and codependency, because what happened was I went completely overboard to the umpteenth degree. For example, staying in an abusive situation, thinking
Right.
that was love, that
Right.
was loving this person.
Mhm.
And because I didn't have any love for myself, I wasn't looking for red flags. I wasn't setting boundaries.
Right.
I was allowing myself to be abused,
Right.
thinking that was love. And I really felt like me staying and enduring this abuse has got to show this person how much I love him.
Right.
And but I was showing myself that I didn't love myself at all. I didn't even think about myself.
Yeah.
So now it's more balanced, to where when you've got that oxygen mask on and you do care for yourself, empathize with yourself, have grace for yourself, it allows you to have boundaries so that someone can come along that is genuinely in need of love and attention, or for someone to listen or a shoulder to cry
Yeah.
on. And you can extend that. But if anybody tries to manipulate you or take advantage of
Yeah.
that tender heart, you can put the gauntlet on and say, no,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate
I
you
don't
sharing
think
that.
I don't think you can have boundaries if you don't have somewhat of healthy self-love.
Right.
Why would you?
Yeah. I mean, there, like you said, you went into that without anything, just like open and ready, because you didn't know how to love yourself, and you certainly wouldn't have been able to set boundaries for yourself in that case.
Yeah.
But fortunately, you're not there anymore. So
No, not. Praise God.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Hello to Kelly Ann Dean. It's been a while, and we're glad that you're here. Welcome. And BB Truth hopped in as well. BB Truth, Kelly Ann Dean, welcome. We're so glad to have you guys here. So I said at the beginning, if only a couple of people showed up, and we've had a lot of people show up tonight. Thank you. We love you guys. We're glad that you're part of the conversation. This is a good night after being gone for a while, for us to come back, and thank you for paying attention to the notification and coming in and saying hello. And as I've said before, it doesn't matter if you're late. We're just glad you're here. Wow, awesome. Okay. Glenn, how can you be in a relationship with anybody else when you don't have one with yourself, my friend?
Yeah, I'd like to just use part of the second paragraph with this as well, sort of preempt it. But if David's here, and I know he'll probably listen to the replay, and he has been here, this one's for you, buddy. I know that David put love on the table for Jena. But Jena is exactly what's in the second paragraph. I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm fearful of being alone. I am stuck and cannot do anything about my situation, etc., etc. How does someone put love on the table to somebody who's in that position of thinking they're a useless piece of garbage? Surely it cannot be accepted, in my humble opinion. What do you think?
I have very strong feelings about this, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but after that, it deserves to be discussed a little bit more for sure. And that is, you cannot, and please listen, you cannot help someone until they're ready to help themselves. You cannot help someone until they're ready to help themselves. They can say that they want help and not be ready. Um, you just can't. You can put yourself out there. You can be there for them. You can rescue them or try to rescue them. You can do all manner of things to help a person. But if they're not ready to be helped, it will continue to happen. That cycle will continue to happen again and again and again. And this is not just me just speaking out of turn here. I have seen it with friends. I've seen it with people that struggle with addiction or alcoholism, or people that are constantly getting in money trouble. Um, just over and over and over again. They get bailed out, they get helped, they go to rehab, and then they're out of rehab again, and they go back to the same thing. And I've actually studied this. I actually looked at it because it's fascinating to me that people can. We'll use heroin for example. So people who do heroin and get addicted to heroin, horrible thing. Okay, so before I say anything, incredibly addictive, incredibly difficult to kick. Okay, difficult, but I've seen people do it. The people that did it finally came to the end of themselves. They really wanted help, and that's why they kicked it. In my opinion, that's why they got off of it. It's so hard to do, and it's certainly hard to do if you don't love yourself, and that's in many cases the reason why people do it in the first place. They're doing it to hide some kind of pain, in my opinion, and sometimes very intense pain. You can't help them if they're not ready to be helped. It's just like beating your head up against a wall, in my opinion, over and over and over again. If the person wants help, if they admit that they need help, then of course you can bend over backwards and do everything under the sun to help them. But if they're not ready, it is pointless. It's pointless.
Can
And
can I
that is
add?
one more thing. That is direct and it's harsh. But I have seen it, and I believe that's 100% true. Go ahead,
I
Jen.
was gonna say I agree, and I'll add that this is where that self-love comes in, because if you're getting like external validation from other people or love externally, because you can't accept it from God, you can't accept it for yourself, toward yourself. You're going to get stuck in cycles like that.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes sense that when someone decides that they want to do it for themselves, a lot of times it comes down to finding their self-worth
Right.
and their self-love, that they decide and they actually can follow through with it because
Yeah.
it's for themselves. It's not based on, well, my family members love me and they want me to get better, so I'm going to do it. I wish that's all it took,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. But
Yeah.
more times than not, in my opinion, it really is, like you had just mentioned, it comes down to someone deciding to do it for themselves. And that's a
Yep.
really sucky position to be in, when you want it so badly for someone that's struggling, but they just can't, they just haven't made that decision yet, or seen their own self-worth enough to say, okay, I need to stop doing this destructive thing.
Yeah.
So
And it's hard to be in that place when you care about someone and you see them repeating the same patterns again and again. And I'll just share a quick story. I had a friend that I watched him probably, and I'm not exaggerating, probably 10 times get his life back together. He would do the hard thing. He would get a job. He would get a crappy job, get two crappy jobs to pull himself back out of a hole, and he many times to get his license issues situated, get a used car and show up to work every day. And then he would go out and he would do a bunch of cocaine and spend all his money and damage his house and crash his car and get another DUI. And then it would start over again. He would feel bad and he would be repentant and he would dig himself out again go back to getting 2-3 crappy jobs, get his license situation taken care of again, pull himself back up, quote unquote, by his own bootstraps. And then it would happen again, over and over and over again. And when it first started happening, the first couple times he did it, I felt bad for him. And this is one of the ways that I learned this lesson. So first time it happened, he needs some money or whatever, help get started, gave him rides to work and things like that, whatever he needed. I'm a nice guy. I'm to help people out as much as I can. And I was happy to do it. Didn't expect anything in return. That's not even part of it. Second time, a little more reluctant, but I hadn't learned the lesson yet. I'm thinking, okay, he really learned this time. He really learned. I mean, he messed it up bad. I mean, oh my gosh, horrible. The story is just horrible about what happened. And this is the second time it's happened. He's going to learn this lesson. This is going to work this time. Okay, I'm not going to drag this out, but this happened literally 10, 11 times. Well, eventually he would mess his life up. This guy, see, he's a good guy. This isn't a piece of garbage. The person I'm talking about is not a piece of garbage. He's not someone, he's intelligent, he's talented, he's an excellent reader, he's an excellent writer, he's fun to be around. He's a great guy. But he kept doing the same thing again because there's something inside himself that is too painful and he's not willing to really look at it. Even through rehab, this is someone who's a believer, or he claims to be a believer. So he's reading scripture. We would do Bible studies together, and it was great. It was great to do that and motivational to me. I got a lot out of that relationship when he was back on the right track again. And then we have a mutual friend. After this had happened several times, a mutual friend called me and said, hey, so-and-so called me and they're trying to get their life back together. And he asked me for money and I gave him some money. I said, okay, well, that's your choice. And he said, well, are you going to help him? I said, nope, I'm done. I wish him the best. I hope he does well, but I've seen this happen too many times. And I've learned the lesson that you can't help someone until they're ready to help themselves. Hard lesson for me to learn, but it just happens to be true. And then this last time, I haven't talked to him in 2 years. The last time it happened, I just had to be done. I couldn't keep hearing the stories over and over again. I just eventually knew what was going to happen. Now, if he reached the end of himself and he wanted to change and he wanted really to do it for himself and he was willing to do whatever it took and really looked at that, I would be more than happy to have a relationship with them. But it's too damaging. It just finally gets to the point where it's too damaging, and you just have to decide when you're just in that place where you just can't watch someone self-destruct over and over and over again. So maybe that was helpful to someone. I hope it was in some way. But this thing that I'm talking about didn't just happen to me. It didn't just, I wake up one day and I was like, oh, well, you can't help people unless they help themselves. No, I've seen it. I've been through it, and I just don't see a way around it, unfortunately.
Grips, can I add, please?
Please.
This is a difficult one because with Jena, we didn't, and nobody, as far as I'm aware, knew that she was self-destructing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's a different situation. So I will tell you what I used to say to her. I'm not saying it's a good way to play it, but every time she would say I'm worthless or I'm garbage or I'm a piece of crap or whatever, I would say, well, I just accept that you are a piece of crap. If you tell me you're crap, you are crap. So what are you going to do about it? So every time I would just keep saying that. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to change? Are you going to address it? What do you imagine? That I imagine I would make the situation way worse if I said, oh, no, Jenny, you're not a piece of crap. Oh, you're a wonderful person. What good's that going to do for anybody?
Right.
So, yeah, but that's when it hurts. It just comes out of the blue. You have no idea, like I said, in the write up, of what's going on in another person's mind and what they're experiencing. And when it comes as total shock, and David pointed out and added to it, the devastation. It's just like, someone's walked off a cliff.
Yeah.
Oh man. So.
Well, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's tough. It's tough to take.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So the story I told, the only point I was trying to get across was that you can't help someone until they're ready to help themselves. But so Jena, nobody knew really where she was at, and that's part of the problem too. So it is a different story. I recognize that. This story that I told is someone that you could see it happening. It wasn't a secret, because we watched it happen over and over and over again. So when you don't know what someone is going through because they're not telling you, that's even more difficult in some ways. How can you help? Again, the question earlier, what we were saying earlier was, how is someone going to help you if they don't know that you're struggling? I just don't know how to get around that problem. So what we're saying about that is, if you are struggling, please reach out to somebody and get the help that you need. Whether it's a money problem, whether it's a location problem, whatever the situation may be, it may seem impossible, but there are people out there that are willing to help you regardless of what you're facing. So please use this story of Jena and what happened with her. Use that as a way to learn something and help others. Sometimes maybe it's about asking someone directly, hey, are you in trouble? Is there anything I can do to help? Maybe that's the point we need to get to. Or we just ask people, just go up to people and say, hey, are you okay? Maybe that's what they need sometimes, is someone to show interest. Maybe that would be helpful. But we are open to anyone's suggestions. If you have any more comments about this, please put them in the description. I'm sure we'll be continuing to talk about these subjects because it's an ongoing issue. I would like to say hello to my friend John Dons, who popped in. I saw a comment earlier, so we're glad that you're here. Thank you. Wow. Okay. All right. So we're going to kind of tie things up. We could go on and on about this stuff. There's a lot to say about it. So I'm going to read the rest of it again, and appreciate you guys being here tonight. It is the repetitive theme. I am not worthy of being loved. I am fearful of being alone. I am stuck. I cannot do anything about my situation. That we see repeated day after day. None of this is an easy listen. However, it is necessary listen in the world of empathy and compassion. Sometimes we might make a difference. Sometimes we might not be. Surely the point is to make. Might not be. Surely, the point is to make the effort. That is the point. Be willing to make the effort. Maybe you don't know what someone's going through, but as I said toward the end there a couple of minutes ago, maybe we just need to get to the point where we ask people. Some of us have intuition, and sometimes we can look at what's not being said and listen to your own voice. Listen to that questioning tone in you, and believers, the Holy Spirit will talk to you. For other people, it's intuition. To me, it's the same thing. It's just we call it two different things, but it's that voice inside you that's telling there's something wrong with this person. They're not telling you. I've had that. I'm sure we've all had that from time to time, whether you call it intuition or the Holy Spirit. Either way, I know it's happened to people. Okay, so empathy and compassion is important, and to make the effort. And then I'll read the last two quotes again here. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded, It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness can we present with the darkness of others. Can we be present? Be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And that was Pima Chardron. Completely agree with that. And also this one, I believe in empathy. I believe in the kind of empathy that is created through imagination and through intimate personal relationships. I'm a writer and a teacher. So much of my time is spent interpreting stories and connecting to other individuals. It is the urge to know more about ourselves and others that creates empathy. Through imagination and our desire for rapport, we transcend our limitations, freshen our eyes, and are able to look at ourselves and the world through a new and alternative lens. Azar Nafasi. And again, Jena's celebration of life extract follows. Quote, she looked back and marveled how far she had come. She didn't wonder how she made it. She already knew the answer. Only with God's help had she powered through. For without his strength, she could do nothing. What more can you give someone than unconditional love? Again, for Jena, David, and Jena's family. It's just, as we were saying at the top of the show, sometimes when people are grieving, you just don't have words to say. But we want to be here for people that are grieving, are struggling in any way. All you have to do is reach out. That's all, in my opinion, sometimes that's all you can do is reach out. And at least here, at least the three of us and many people in the chat, there are people here that are willing to listen. And it's up to you to advocate for yourself and hold your hand up and say, hey, I need help. Sometimes there may not be anything that you see that can be done. It might seem impossible to you. But again, if you don't let someone know what you're dealing with, how are you ever going to get the help that you need? Any other comments before we start the good nights, Glenn or Jen? Anything else you want to add, or any comments that you'd like to make about anything that we've covered tonight?
I just want to thank everyone for being involved in the discussion and sharing. I think, it's easier to share in chat, when your face isn't shown or you're not talking in person, but it's still vulnerability, on a different level. So I just really appreciate you guys showing up and listening and sharing. And we just really appreciate you guys, and all of you matter, each one of you.
Yes.
And the other thing I was going to say, I don't know about you guys, but it breaks my heart when I hear, I've chatted with some of you guys off the show. I wish that I had $1 million or more to shovel out money to some of you that are in tough situations.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart that I can't do more than pray, but I have to remind myself, some of us serve a God and believe in God, and he has unlimited resources, and he sees all and knows all. Right. And so sometimes I have to remind myself how powerful prayer is, and that even aside from money or any material ways that we could help you guys, it is the best thing that we can do. And but I hate that throwing out, I'll pray for you with some people that claim to be believers, and it's almost shelved as another platitude. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are people out there that really do get on their faces and pray for you guys, and it's not just a passing comment. Right. We really care about you guys, and I just wanted to say that. I know that there are people out there that they do use it as a platitude, and they just kind of use it to shut people up, or they don't want to help, so they'll throw that out there. But not everybody's like that, and prayer is just a very powerful thing, and we serve an awesome God. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you sharing that. Glenn?
Yes, please. This one's for Stephanie, where she says, what if one feels too guilty to ask and accept the help. Well, I'm going to say to you, Stephanie, straight up, if everyone is like that and you do not ask and accept help from someone else, how then are you ever going to be able to pay it forward or whatever they call it and help others? If you are willing to accept the help, does that not put you in a position where when a person comes along and says, Stephanie, I need help, you'll be able to step up and do it and help them?
Yeah.
It's reciprocation all the way down the line.
Yeah.
So I think get over feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Put your hand up, accept with grace. That's all you have to do. There's no guilt in any of this, surely.
Right.
In my opinion. I know it's hard, but try to put it out of your mind. People are here to help you. They're not asking for payback, reward.
Right.
They do it out of the generosity of spirit.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Yeah, there's nothing I can add to that. I agree with everything Glenn just said. And I'll piggyback what Jen said. We do appreciate all the comments. We appreciate everyone being here. We actually at one point, and it's not about numbers for this channel at all, but it was nice to see that at one point we had 17, which is a high number for this channel. It's a high number, and you guys are a part of that. So thank you for that. Having said that, if you do enjoy these programs, I don't know that there's any programs exactly like this one, and I think that's good. If you do get something out of this, please like for us on the page. That'll tell people that are just stopping by that, hey, some people like this. And also, it also helps to make comments in the description for people to see when they stop by. But most of all, word of mouth. If you would take a moment to let people know about our channel, because we're not going to ever be monetized. It's not something we want anyway on YouTube. In fact, most of the good YouTube channels are being censored and scrubbed out there. I don't think that we handle any subjects that are really taboo or controversial in any way. We have never had a problem with that. So we're good in that way. We're staying away from conspiracy theories. That's not what we're about here on this particular channel. Those of you that know me know that I've got plenty, quote unquote, conspiracy theories that I look at and study and believe, but that's not what this forum is about. This forum, in my opinion, is to talk about things that matter and to help one another and have open discussions without guilt, without shame, without making people feel bad about the situation that they're in. And we will continue to do that as long as anybody shows up like you guys do, like you guys did tonight. As long as you keep showing up, we'll keep doing it for as long as we can. And we're grateful for the opportunity. So thank you for that. Thank you also again to Glenn for a wonderful write-up. I got a little emotional when I was reading it. It's just the weight of losing someone that I wish I knew better. It just reminded me how many people I've lost, that it was too soon, too early. Life is precious. And I think it's unfortunate that it takes something like this sometimes to point that out to us and to remind us of that fact. Life is a gift. Life is precious. And you don't really know how much you miss someone until they're gone. I mean, it is a platitude. So you don't know what you got until you're gone. Yeah, that's a platitude. But some things are platitudes. Some things are said because they're true. And that's, to me, one of them that is. It's very true. So again, thank you, Glenn, for putting so much time and effort into these write-ups. This one, especially tonight, was very poignant to me, and I'm grateful to you for putting the time in. Again, thanks to everyone who took the time to stop in and for commenting. As Jen said, we really, really love and appreciate all of you. And you can join us on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. And that's in our TSL Discord channel. And while I'm thinking about it, I need to put the link in there. So just if Jen, if you want to start by saying goodnight to everyone, then that'll give me some time to find the link
Yeah.
to the Discord.
I'll just say thanks again for you guys. Come to hang out with us. I mean, there's so much you guys could be doing on a Sunday night, getting ready for your Monday mornings, whatever that entails. So we just really appreciate you guys carving out some time to come and chat and discuss with us and share things and be open and vulnerable and just discussing. It's awesome. And I'm so grateful that this channel is not a debate channel, but it's a discussion, a discussing kind of channel. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
And we just really appreciate all of you being respectful, not just with us, but with the other people in chat. We just, it's priceless. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. We value each and every one of you. And I have put the Discord server link in the chat. So you don't need permission to come in to this one. When we were doing the Google Meet, you know, I had to let people in and all that. You guys are welcome to go there anytime. If there's someone in there that wants to talk to you, you can go in there and talk. You can either do the text chatting. There's only 2 places in there. It's not complicated. So there's one that's text. You can text back and forth or whatever. And there's one that's you can come on mic and talk to each other. And right now, with the amount of people that we have coming in there, there's no plan to change it or make it complicated. I've seen Discords that have like 50 different channels in there. So it gets a little bit overwhelming, but we're keeping things simple in there. So join us on Tuesday, if you'd like to, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We really have good discussions. They're not recorded or anything, but we get into lots of some of the same topics and things like that. Sometimes it's just hearing about people's lives. It's nothing too crazy. Let's see. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Where do you go to have friendly discussions on conspiracy theory scripts, or is it a private channel? I don't have anything set up like that. Probably Joel would be the best person to talk to about that. He might know more about that. So Joel, if you care to respond to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, if you can answer his question, if you know of anywhere to do that. I'm happy to talk with you anytime. That's not a problem. And you can come to the Discord. And if there's nobody in there, we're not going to use that Discord. I want to say this publicly. I have no problem with anybody talking about what they want to talk about, but there are certain people that are part of True Story Live and part of the listeners that do not want to hear about conspiracy theories. They just don't. And I get that. That's okay. We're not trying to push that on anybody. So maybe I need to create a different Discord for that purpose.
Or one thing we could do is, if we're going to have a call with a couple people that want to talk about it, we could put in the chat like, hey, we're getting on with, a couple people to talk about flat Earth or, the government, whatever, vaccines. Oh gosh, am I going to get the video?
Oh no, you said it.
Dang it.
Oh, it's out. It's out now. It's
rewind and erase. But we could always put it in the chat just so that people know, like, hey, I see people on, and they can look at the chat and see what we're discussing.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I just want to say that publicly. I mean, it hasn't been a big deal or anything like that. There have been a couple times when some people were, offended about some of the topics that we discussed. So we're going to try to just keep the conspiracy theories for a separate time, like a private talk with people that want to do that. So I appreciate your listening to that. And sorry. Okay. So Glenn, if you want to say goodbye to the people, that it would be your turn, sir.
Yeah. Good night, all. Thanks so much for turning up. It was a very poignant show, and as I said there, Cripps, I think you did an absolutely marvelous job at hosting.
Oh, thank you.
Way better than I could ever do, that's for sure. Well, and I want to say a special thanks to David. I know you've been doing it tough, David. I'm sure everyone here is thinking of you, and certainly I send you best wishes from this channel, and talk soon. So good night, all.
Thank you, Glenn. All right, that's it for us, guys. Thank you for being a part of tonight's broadcast. This has been True Story Live with An Unfinished Life, the topic of empathy. We'll see some of you on Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time in the Discord, and that link is in the chat there. If you're listening to the playback and you didn't get a chance to see that, you can send me an email at truestorylive.crips@gmail.com, and I'll make sure. Nut House is in the house. Good to see you, buddy. The Nut House. If you the Discord link's in there if you want to join that too. We'd love to have you over there. And BB Truth said she's going to join, so that's great. We'd like as many people that want to share in those discussions on Tuesday. And like I said, you guys can go in there anytime if there's anybody in there. I know a couple people were in there outside of the Tuesday night and we're talking for hours. I think it was Joel and Dar were in there. They were there. Jen and I left and we went to spend our time before bed. And then I came back and it was still open on my desktop. And it had been like 3 hours had gone by and they were still in there. So I think that's great. That's what it's there for. So that's good. All right. That's it. I hope everyone has a good week. Like I said, we'll see some of you on Tuesday, and for the others, we'll see you next Sunday night. Have a great one. Good night and God bless. Thank you for joining.